All right, salam everyone. Barkanku da warhaka. Today I'm here with Abu-Bakr S Adamu, a screenwriter, director, and editor, and a founding member of the creative arts studio Alpha Flix from Suleja, Nigeria. As you all may know, Hausa Aesthetic started by uplifting and reposting Kannywood films, so we'll be reconnecting with our roots today by talking to a filmmaker. If you're not familiar with Abu Bakr, he has produced and directed many award-winning Hausa language short films like Salamatu's Rhapsody, a story about a girl pursuing rap music in an Arewa family, and Toro Darua, a story of a young boy overcoming his fear of water. So in this episode, we'll touch on Abu Bakr's journey to film, as well as what it's like to be an indie filmmaker in northern Nigeria. Could you give us a short introduction of who you are and what you do?
My name is Abu-Bakr S Adamu. I am a writer, director, photographer. I am a graphic designer. I do a lot of things generally, but I basically identify myself most times as just a right-hand director. I make films that are very centered on characters and trying to tell important story. I am trying to pay more attention towards telling stories that are focused on the boy child. No, I'm not limiting myself to it, but I personally trying to push more towards that, tell important story, bring stories to people, and yeah.
So before we start, Abubakar, I want to ask you an icebreaker question. What's your favorite Kannywood film?
This is like a very tricky question. Yeah, because obviously I haven't really watched most of the recently released Kannywood movies. My favorite that I can still remember from the previous one I've watched is Zuria.
Okay, I don't think I know that one. What's it about?
Yeah, it's the one from FKD Alinu who he has like his family, his happy family, they're living together, they are comfortable. And he began to make moves like he was trying to get another wife. And that move eventually started bringing in some cracks in his family. The wife, obviously, she was jealous and she was trying to fight everything she can to make sure he doesn't get married to another woman. But eventually, she fell sick and she was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my
gosh. Was already late. Yeah, she will most likely be leaving very soon. So she just actually accepted her fate that she actually needs another woman to come into the family to take care of their kids. She accepted it.
Okay, and that's like the moral of the story. That's so funny. Because, some people do marry another one and be like, oh, is that the Kulaman I know, whatever. So that's so funny. So thank you for that. My first question is, what drew you to film and what were your earliest sources of inspiration?
It was more like something of like fun. Myself and my friends, we were younger then. I was in my early teenage age. So we usually do, when boys are around, we have someone who has like a mobile phone. We just take pictures of ourselves. Maybe when we dress during Salah and stuff, just take pictures of ourselves. Luckily or unluckily, because sometimes you might be lucky that happens that way, or sometimes it actually sounds unlucky because it's very common that if you're in a group of people and they usually pass the phone for you to take picture of them, it is like an indication that you're the least. But that was not the point actually. It was just that when I take pictures of us in group, then it's actually different from one like what every other person would take. So when I want to take pictures, they just pass me the phone like, nah, I'm going to take these pictures better. And then it was just like this button phone. When we started all this stuff, I don't think smartphones have gotten into Nigeria yet. So then we're just making use of this button phone.
Wow.
Then yeah. One trick became very popular then. There's this trick where if you're making a video to make something disappear, you say, that's how they usually do it in films. So when you're recording, you press the pause button, then you take the object out of frame, then you play. So when you stop the video, if you play the video, you notice the object just disappears at that point where you pause. So this thing is something that's actually fun. So we started creating videos of maybe sometimes we'll do bag, we'll do shoe, and at some point was getting serious, started making use of ourselves. So we just do someone who is wearing like a cap or is dressed completely, and then we pause and the person takes off his clothes and you just look at where has the clothes gone. So then I think that was when the whole Instagram content creation stuff started and smartphones was getting into Nigeria then and people were making use of smartphone, getting into social media and there were a lot of people trying to not a lot, sure, because then there were just few people who were trying to create like comedy videos that are very short. So we started making short videos that we assume are funny. Because if I watch them today, personally, I don't think there's anything funny about it we're doing there. Yeah. So we're just creating funny videos. We make use of Facebook then. We'll post some of the videos. Some of them, they get lost in editing, trying to edit them. The phones cannot really handle the editing. Apart from that, even the person editing, that was myself. I don't really know much of what I'm trying to do editing. So we end up dumping some of those things and we just leave everything at that point. And yeah, I was already watching movies. I grew up in a family where I was exposed to Kannywood movies a lot. Then when there's any new Kannywood movie, we usually get it. And this exposure is not usually from my parents because my parents generally, they don't watch films. Only my dad doesn't even watch films. He usually just watches news. So my mom, she hardly watch films. So it's just sometimes maybe when my siblings are the main sources that introduce me to films. They bring films home and we watch. Sometimes they have to bring my mom sitter and she watch some of them with us. But most times she don't. So I watch a lot of Kannywood movies. Then I started watching Nollywood movies too. I watched a lot of Nollywood movies. Even all those Asabawood, all those Aki and Popo, those village films, we watched a lot of them. Because then my brother, there is like this big store around my place that is very popular then. He usually gets new copies of films that have been released in the market. So he just go there and just gets as much as he can. And for that week, we'll just be watching. So then I was just watching for watching sake. And then interacting with friends, I was introduced to American action movies, Indian films, and stuff like that. Then too, just for consuming sake, I was just consuming them, just watching them for the sake of just watching them. And that was how I was introduced to some of the films. And I think one of the films I watched then that caught my attention was Avatar by James Cameron. I didn't know much about how film was made then, how all these things have been done. I couldn't get my head around how they were able to make something like that. The film is supposed to be like a different world where humans can shift into being avatars again. They are actual avatars in their other world. But you as a human, there's a way they can create a technology to move you to the other world, to communicate with those creatures. And I was like, how did they even do this? That was what drew my curiosity around stuff. Here I started making a couple of research that I can do like online and get some information that I can. I was just making research, not really that serious research. I was just maybe once in a while, if I just get curious about something, I just search about it. Then I begin to learn, so some of these things, there are actually a lot of effort being put into doing something like this. Then I brought my friends together one time. I tell you, okay, we can actually make something instead of the videos we used to do then, because we actually at some point stopped. I was able to call them back. I said, let's start doing something. When we were young, we were just young boys who we never had anything to do. Just go to school. And you come back to school, you go back to Islamia. That's just it. So the other few hours we just meet together and just make noise about whatever. So I was able to bring up conversation like this. Instead of wasting all this time, let's do something. And we started creating short videos with smartphones. Just videos that, like I said, before we were trying to be funny. This time we were not trying to be funny. We were just creating videos. We just assume we are creating videos. And then I said, instead of all these videos, we can actually make a film. Then I never knew what was the first step to making a film. But I knew that you actually have to write it. I don't know how to write script. I don't know. I've never seen a script before then. I have never seen it. In school, we usually do because it's a literature in English, and I could see how some plays are being written. So I just assume, okay, a film script can actually look like this, or maybe not, but at least you can put your ideas like this. The first screenplay I wrote it with my hands. My dad had this one.
How long did it
I
take
think
you?
almost 4 days.
Lele. I mean, it's by hand.
Yeah.
So,
My
yeah.
my siblings then we were just wondering what was so serious about it because then I usually stay late nights writing it. I sleep with like I stay with the same stay in the same room with my older brother. So sometimes I wonder why are you taking this in serious? What this thing? Come on, drop this and I go and sleep. Sometimes when he's gone, I still wake up and I continue writing. I wrote that screenplay everything with my hand because my dad had this bunch of A4 papers then that he was not making use of. So I was just using them. I wrote the script. I had one copy. So the next day when I'm done with it, I showed it to my friends and they're all happy. We have something we're going to work with. Then we say, okay, let's start. We started making arrangements for who's going to play which character, who is going to, who's going to handle this, who's going to handle that, where are we going to shoot? And they're all happy. Everybody was happy. So I took everybody one day. Let's go for like proper location to get the locations we can use for the shoots. When we were there, we get all the locations. Okay, this is going to work. So instead of just leaving, I said, okay, let's actually rehearse. Some of the actors are here. Let's do something else. And we started rehearsing. We rehearsed for, I think, a couple of minutes. Then we were about to go back home when someone asked us that instead of us going, we can still play football because then, we are just moving from adventure to adventure. Once you're done with one thing, someone is coming up with the idea to do another thing again. So it's okay, let's play football. So it was during the football, an argument up between me and one of my friends. And he said something that hurt my feelings then. He said, even the directing that I'm doing, that they're just managing me, not like I know what I'm doing. It didn't actually hurt my feelings so much that I said, okay, this thing we were planning to do, you're not going to do it anymore. I'm not interested. Everybody was begging me, no, let's do this thing. I said, no, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I left everything. I packed all the scripts and I actually regretted not doing that because I wish I had done that. Possibly we wouldn't have maybe end up editing it, but I think I would have learned a couple of lessons along the way. We didn't do anything, so we just dumped it. I think after a few months again, that same guy that said that same thing to me, we came together again and we started a new group where we've moved from now making films. So now we were trying to see if we can go into music.
Oh, that's interesting. What
we're just trying
kind?
to do rap then. I think that was the time I don't know if you're familiar with YNF.
Yes, yeah. The Northern rappers, DJ AB and his
Thank you very
friends.
much. And that was the year they were like popping. So everybody was like, okay, let's do music too. Like, we are Arewa, we can use Hausa, use North and rap, and people are going to feel us. So we started. As we started, we don't even have idea where we can get a studio. So we just make use of phone, just write our lyrics, and we go into a room. We just freestyle it and we record it. If you're cool with it, like, I think there was one we finally decided, okay, this one actually makes sense. So now let's go and see where we can get an actual studio that we can record. Funny enough, we never end up going to the studio again. We dumped the music again. I think that was when most of us were now going into secondary school. So school was becoming a lot more serious. We don't usually spend much time like we do before. My friend group, I was like the first person who started like handwork because my sister had to introduce me to someone who does Aiki Hanu. You know Aiki Hanu now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like embroidery?
Yes. I am very good with it. But I don't do it anymore. Many people don't even know that I can actually do it.
Oh, I need some things embroidered. You want to come out of retirement? No, yeah, that's cool.
I spent 3 years learning it and I never had freedom. So I ran away myself and I was able to work for a couple of months. I think it was for 2 sellers. I worked for 2 sellers on my own. And after those sellers, I just dumped it. I wasn't getting like joy from it. Like there's nothing I'm getting from this thing. Of course, I'm working and I'm getting money, but I don't feel like there's some form of connection in this. So I left everything. All my friends, everybody now gone. Nobody's interested in anything that has to do with music, film, or whatever. Some of them were relocating, so it made it even worse. So I just dumped everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you find your way back to film after everyone kind of left it?
It was my first year in the university. My first year in the university, I saw this particular guy. He looks very familiar. I know this is someone I know from my place in Suleja. I met him and funny enough, it ends up that he was also like, he was looking for where we were supposed to have lectures then. And that was how I asked him and we started talking. Throughout that semester, he didn't even recognize that like I was someone who knew him from Suleja. But me, I already know this someone I knew. So it was when we were like after exams, we were planning to go home. They said, so you're actually from Suleja? I said, yes, now. Ah, then when we came back home for that break, that was when I like we met and we were discussing all that how he introduced me to his friends. I found out that he and him, like his friends too, they're also trying to do stuff like that. And say, so you can actually do things like this. I say, yes, let's join hands. And that was how we came back. And then we started actually writing stories and making films. So these friends, though there are a couple of them who have left over the years, they are still the same people I've been making films with up till today.
That's so amazing. I love how you were able to have like that full circle moment because it feels like you were moving with different groups of friends and you're still making things with friends. And I know your first film, right? Toro de Rua is also another film that you made with friends. So I really liked it because it's really experimental. It's a guy who is scared of water. And it opens up with one of like Shata's most infamous songs, Asharua Balehi Bani. And then the guy is like chained up by his dad, who won't let him out until they figure out what's wrong. And Nina Farko, I thought, the Aljanu or something, because that's usually when they tie them up. And then you see them like, Engarua come, and then he just like cannot control it. And then he later overcomes like the fear through his friends too. And I feel like friendship is something that's coming up a lot in even your story of how you started making films or started photography and things like that. So I wanted to know, like, how did you come up with the idea for it? And what were you trying to communicate with it overall?
These friends, the first group of friends I mentioned where you usually make just funny skits and stuff. Those were like my childhood friends. So they were the ones I mostly did the most adventures with. And one of the adventures we usually do then was going to like visiting the river and stuff, going to river. We have a lot of river spots in our place here. But generally, no parent allows their child to go there. Even though we are the children, we still go. We just make sure our parents never know. So we usually
Why
go.
not?
And going there, I don't know, there is a belief that you can just get drowned and you just die. So it's not a safe place for any child to be. Aside from that, mine is even more personal because I lost one of my brother. He died in the river actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry
Yeah,
about
thank you.
that.
So that was even more why I would try as much as possible to make sure my mom never knows, which she eventually knew. And when she knew, that moment was one of like the most emotional moments I've ever experienced my mom going through because she was trying to relate it to how she lost one of her son and what if she lost another one through that way. So that whole moment made me stop going to the river for a while. But then we are still kids. One way or the other, before you know, we are back again. But this time we will make sure that we hide our lesson as much as possible because there are times when we go where some of us even would have ended up drowning. Where we sometimes we just end up being lucky that there are older people there. So we always have that faith that even if anything is going to happen, there'll always be someone there. So we kept on going. So these are like the influence behind it of how strict it is that you can't just go to the river if you want to cross. Then I try to add some other fictional stuff like someone who is scared of water. And I I personally like talking about friendship because I figured out that the way I build friendship is usually different from the way people usually build friendship. I don't believe in telling someone like you meet someone and you just tell them that can I be your friend? I don't believe that. If you ever tell me that can I be your friend, we will most likely never be friends. I believe friendship is something that we just get to a point where we both agree that we are now friends. We don't even know how everything started. We just end up being friends. My friends, personally, they have in so many ways brought me out of a lot of troubles. They've put me in trouble too, and they've brought me out of trouble. I think that's one of the fun parts of friendship, and that was what I was trying to explore in the film itself. Sometimes we need our friends to overcome some of the fears we have in us. Because sometimes we feel like it's some kind of ailment or maybe some kind of possession, but it's like it's just in your head. It's just a fear that you just need to get rid of. Once you're done with it, you notice it's just fear. You can do this and you can do that.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. Like I really liked the film and I thought it was really refreshing from what you see coming out like other Hausa films, even though I feel like, I'm always supporting Hausa films, Kannywood and things like that. But that was really interesting. Just the storyline of it and also the short film aspect of it. And it feels so different from Salamatu's Rhapsody, which is longer and so has more room for deep storytelling. But Salamatu's Rhapsody was my favorite film, I think, because I watched it with my friends and they loved it. And so, for context, it's Salamatu is like a young, I guess, university age student who's interested in rap, but her parents, particularly her father, wants her to go to school and become like a professor, like so a lot of school, a lazy boko, as people say. And it feels so different because I feel like so often Arewa stories, even when it's from Kannywood, it follows the same script. Like I was expecting maybe, oh, she needs to get married. Maybe that was going to be like the storyline. Or she would join rap and then get addicted to drugs and then Zate Tuba and then Zata Dauda Gabaya and then get married and whatever. Because I feel like that's just like the usual storyline. So I was thinking it was going to go something like that. But this one was really different. So I wanted to know more about like this movie or this film and the process behind creating it.
As a filmmaker, I have been trying to like train myself to make sure when I'm telling story, I'm not trying to come from a very strict moral perspective because at the end of the day, you're telling stories about humans. Like you said, most of those films, they are trying to tell you this is not good, that is bad, do this is what you're going to do, that's not going to do. And sometimes, yeah, this is bad. But there's just the way life usually works. You fall into so many places when you're doing things. So for Salamato's Rhapsody, the idea was not originally mine. Before we released Soro de Roi, we haven't released Soro de Roi yet. When it got the first festival selection, I posted it on Twitter. I had this mutual he was following me on Twitter. We follow each other. So when he saw it, he just saw the post I did. It was like a poster for the Torodorwa. And the thing immediately drew his attention. Like, okay, because he had an idea. Like, he feel like this guy might be interested in something that he's trying to do. So he reached out to me through DM and just asked that if he can see this Torodorwa, because we've not released it yet, if I can send him a screener so he can watch. I said, yeah, that's fine. I can send it to you. And I sent it to him and he watched. I think a day later he messaged me and said, wow, he just finished watching this film and I am exactly the person he has been looking for. He needs someone who's going to help him bring this story to life, to write and direct because he's very much interested in producing. I said, okay, we moved our conversation from Twitter to WhatsApp and he shared me the idea. It's just a draft of the story. And I read the story. The story was like very interesting. When they're trying to tell stories about Arewa women and trying to empower them, it's always about she's getting married. They're forcing her to get married and stopping her from education. And I'm not trying to say like things like this are not happening. There are so many other ways of operation that is actually happening that most people excuse because this is not like the common way things happen. And the story was like very refreshing. I said, yeah, I like the story. Let's move. How can we do it? So then he was planning to make use of his funding to make the film. And I was able to bring people together. Because one thing I have used over the years, which I am still very grateful for, is the quality of people I've had around me. If I'm trying to make something now, they are just people I can just call someone who's going to shoot, someone who's going to edit, someone who's going to do sound and stuff like that, which makes like when it comes to cost very low. And these people are like relationship I've built over the years on social media. So I was able to reach out to a couple of people and they were interested. Okay, let's work on this. So we were just focused on writing the script first. I write the first draft. The first draft are not really the best, but it's actually helped in fleshing out the story. And we kept on working on more drafts, more drafts. So we had the drafts that we are now convinced that, okay, we can film this. But now we need the budget to work on this project. And we need some couple of things to work on this project. The strongest part when we are now trying to move it to production, the guy stepped out of the project and he was holding like a very crucial position in the production. So him stepping out of the project actually affected the project. So we had to leave the project first. We left the project. So, okay, we are going to revisit it. We are going to revisit the project maybe in the next few months. But let's keep on just living and see how things go. That was when British Council started the program, Film Lab Africa. That was their inaugural program. The film community called FilmRat. I think FilmRat is like the best film community in Nigeria. If you're like a filmmaker or a cinephile and you're trying to connect with people who like film, who like to make film, that's one of the best communities. And I joined FilmRat, I think, in 2023. While in the group, that was when they shared the link that British Council is opening their listing for Film Lab Africa. People should apply. I saw it, I said, okay, I clicked on the link, and I usually run away from applications that are too long or asking for too much. I just say, Kai, no, it's not even by force. Let me just leave this. I cannot be feeling this shit. I left it. So that producer, he also saw the post somewhere. So he reached out to me again because there was like an age range. I think it was from 18 to 25. And then I was just 21 or 22, right? Yeah, he asked me, I said, this thing is something that's going to favor me. And he was older than 25. So I should apply. He also applied, but he was not sure they were going to give him because of his age. But he said, I should apply. So he convinced me. And some of the process, there was supposed to be an exam you're supposed to write. You submit the form with the exam. But they end up removing the exam because maybe they noticed like a lot of people were complaining that the exam was too long, making the process a whole more stressful. So they took out the exam, and that was when I applied. He applied too. It was in January, that was when we received the notification that we've been selected for the program. And we were very happy. And yeah, we spent 10 weeks being mentored by a lot of filmmakers from Nigeria and UK specifically, from storytelling, editing, sound, everything that has to do with film production. So we go through all those training, and after the training, we're supposed to pitch. So I went to pitch your idea. So I was working on pitching my own idea of silent verses, and the producer was working on pitching Sasnauskaite Rhapsody. So he pitched Sasnauskaite Rhapsody, I pitched silent verses, and when the day of the selected project, it was supposed to be 10 selected short films that will be selected and will be financed. The filmmakers will be mentored by professionals in the industry, then to make the films. Luckily, they didn't pick silent verses, but they picked Sasnauskaite Rhapsody. And my name was already there as the writer and the director. That was how we were able to receive mentoring. Then they gave us a limitation that we can only produce or make the film in Lagos. The highest we can go is Ibadan. But the story is set in the north. A lot of work will be done into trying to make the place look like the north because you're trying to give this feeling. And personally, that's something I've been trying to fight like for years. I watch so many films with Hausa or northern characters that are very annoying and cringy to me. Sometimes even the room settings, like there's the way rooms are being set here. You don't just put things anywhere and just want people to assume that, okay, these people are Northerners. I understand if people who don't know Northerners watch it, they might not see it. But Northerners who are been living their life like this, they don't see themselves in this character, and you're trying to portray them in this film. We try to convince them to let us shoot in the north. They say, no, we'll shoot in Ibadan. I think after a lot of back and forth, they agreed that we'll be shooting in Kaduna. So we went to Kaduna, and the production was supposed to be for just 3 days. We can't go more than 3 days. And we have so many things to shoot. There were so many things because we were trying to tell the story as much as we can. And apart from shooting for just 3 days, we have to cut the final version to just 10 minutes. It cannot be more than 10 minutes. We shot so many things that when we edited it, the first cut was like 20 something minutes. The whole post-production came up with some challenges with communication, and one of the crew members just stepped out of the project. Others were left with dealing with the post-production until the end of getting someone who was able to bring it down to 10 minutes for the British Council, and it was submitted to them and they approved the film. And there were a couple of screenings that have been held both in London, Lagos, and Abuja where the film screened. One of the screenings that they actually did in Abuja, I think that was like the first time I stepped out for something, because usually when I make things, most people who know me just know me online. I try as much as possible to not meet anybody in real life. Most of the people I meet are usually just we just meet one-on-one, not like in a gathering. Where some people know me physically. But that was the first time I actually, I knew that I should step out and go and represent this film. And the whole attention, it was like it was it was fun, but it was a lot for me, so I had to run away from it. So since then, I've been trying to stay away from it. Like I stay near it, but I try to stay away from a situation where there will be too much attention on me because I still want most of the attention to be on what I do rather than me myself because I
Right.
can actually a lot of people here.
A lot of people do have problems, like especially in recent years, you see a lot of people complaining about like Kannywood and like even the way they portray Arewa. Obviously, Kannywood has to work within certain restrictions, especially after the Sharia bill was passed, which really affects the type of things that they put out. But then even in recent years, we're kind of tired of like the marriage, Ode, so yeah, I think. And then on the other side with the Southerners, I mean, they just get anyone and have them and call them Hausa and just put that little hat on and the hat is lopsided or whatever. And they're like, yeah, this is a Hausa
Exactly.
person. Yeah, or this is an Arewa person. And looking at that, it just also doesn't feel right. So you're trying to do something that's like completely separate from both of those things. So, and you mentioned like how you want the attention to be on your work rather than yourself. So I wanted to ask, what are your goals for your filmmaking overall, and how do you think it contributes to Arewa stories in general?
My theme overall, firstly, over the years, I have grown to have like a different opinion of what I want my films to do. As it is now, firstly, I want my film to like feel good to me. I just want to make films where I be like, yeah, I actually did something. And something that I'm trying to do is like to change narrative and explore stories that have not been explored. So people would be exposed even more because I believe there is a lot of ignorance in things that are very basic to a lot of people that they don't know. Just in normal conversation, just like you say about the Arewa itself, like many people still just assume that Arewa is just Hausa. Like this is 2026 and there are still people who still have a limited knowledge of that. They just believe the North is just Hausa. So I am trying to see how I can expand and explore stories, people, get perspective. And so when you watch my film, I don't want you to necessarily see yourself. I want you to see someone else. Like there's someone like this existing somewhere. Then you should understand that people are totally different. Creating original story is actually very hard, even if it's like your experience, because your experience is very limited to you. Once you step out of your experience, another person's experience, even someone that's close to you, is different. Even like if something does happen here, we both saw what happened, we'll most likely have different version of what actually happened. So experience is actually different. You exploring this thing from different perspective is like giving a singular image to what this is. That's why you have to be as attentive as possible when you're trying to address something that has to do with image. If you are telling Arewa stories, telling stories of Arewa people as the humans that they are, their experiences, their challenges, their weakness, their strength, it makes more sense and make it even less that you won't be given a wrong narrative. At the end of the day, these people are just humans. You just have to experience humans for who they are as humans.
I'm just thinking about what you said also about stepping outside of your own experience. And it reminds me of something Toni Morrison said about her writing and was like, basically, no one wants to hear about your little life, which is so funny because sometimes our experience is limited. Like I know as a House of Fulani person from Katsina, if I wanted to start talking about Arewa, and part of the reason why I named it Hausa Aesthetic and not Arewa Aesthetic is because I know my experience is very much limited to what I understand Arewa to be, which is very like Hausa, very Muslim, very
Yeah.
right, influenced by Fulani, maybe a little Kanuri, but like definitely not a lot of these minority groups and things like that. So for me to claim to speak for all Arewa people would be very like flattening. But then also you too, you're not necessarily Hausa. You're, from my
Yeah.
understanding, Gade and Ebira. So It is really refreshing if you would like to begin making films that show more about that perspective. Even when I was talking, I was showing someone about like Salamatu's Rhapsody, they were like, oh, this person from their accent is not like, a dominant Hausa person. Like basically like they're not a native Hausa speaker or they don't have that core Hausa States accent, like middle belt accent. And I was like, yeah, but that's also good because it's not just, Hausa Bakwai who speak Hausa, right? So I wanted to ask, like, even though I know Hausa is the dominant language in Nigeria, why do you make films in Hausa or even have like the subtitles in Hausa? Why not in Gade or Ebira or another language?
So I would blame them. I would blame that for the fact that I grew up in a community of Hausa speaking people. Though naturally, but I grew up in a community of Hausa speaking people, which influence like most of the things I do, most of the things that I say, what I eat, the way I behave, the way I dress is mostly by them. I would also like to, not just like to, I would be exploring stories of Igbira people, the Gadeto itself, and exploring minority languages that are very close to me that I can easily get access to some of their stuff. But I needed to start with something which would be a lot more convincing. Because if I just pop up and just make like a Gade film, there are chances that the film will actually do good if it is actually a good film. But then the communication barrier, because the Gede on itself as a language, only Gede people can speak Gede. Only Gede people can speak Gede. But unlike Hausa, there are so many people that can speak Hausa who are not Hausas, and you can easily communicate with people. And the point of film is, there should be some form of communication, and language is very important. So you need to communicate first. So if you can communicate with your film, so I had to use the language that is easier, and there's a lot more people who are going to get it faster. So that was why I started with Hausa, even with the influence I grew up in a society where with small Hausa speaking people. So when I advance, they probably, when people have seen some of my stuff, and yeah, it gets to the point where people want to watch the things I do because it is me. Then I can explore other languages. At that point, people are not really like concerned about the language of communication. Now it's the story itself they're trying to focus on, which I think it actually limits a lot of people because there are so many good films in languages that are not very prominent and so many people are missing out on. But then we have to get there, and that's the whole point of subtitle itself. But it's like a step, and I have plans of getting there, and very soon I'll get there.
Yeah, and I think that's even true with Hausa films, like broader in Africa. When you think about like Nigerian films, or I tell people I'm Nigerian, and then they're always bringing up Nollywood, and I'm like, well, I didn't grow up watching Nollywood. I grew up on Kannywood, but I can't really show Kannywood to my friends because it's all in Hausa and the subtitles are not in English. So I totally understand that with your language, like within Arewa, it's not going to be easy to have like Gade or something like that. Me personally, I'm at a point where you could film anything and I'd be down to watch. So if you're waiting for one person, you have that one person, but I totally understand that. But another question I wanted to ask is, all of your films, or at least the ones I've seen so far, are short films. So is there a reason that you choose that form, or is it just like, I know with Salamatu's Rhapsody, you had like restrictions and things like that, but what are you thinking about this short form?
I used to believe that short forms of films, short films are like films people make to learn. And yeah, they are still the films you need to start with to learn. But I have learned to believe that it is not just for learning. The short film itself is like an art form. We don't have to always address it like it's some form of stepping stones to making feature films. I have a visual language I have been trying to build over the years, even though making the films are very hard because I was hoping I was going to go make more short films so I can build my visual language. Why I find it very important is that if you've seen most of my short films and yeah, already feels my visual language, you can already tell how my feature film will look like. There will be no much like strange looks and stuff like that. You know how this person approached storytelling. And that's what I've been trying to do. But then short films are the easiest and the cheapest to make as it is now. I am currently developing my first feature film. I've been writing the screenplay for like 2 years now. And I think I just finished the second draft 2 days ago. And I've been trying to like wrap up on the screenplay. There's already like a producer attached. Hopefully we're going to see how we can pull it off. And yeah, to be a lot, that's like a feature film, which I have never done before. And to be like my first feature. So there's a lot of effort, attention, time, and efforts towards making it happen.
I love that. That's super exciting. And mashallah, you've done a lot as like an indie filmmaker and not really connected to larger Kannywood system or anything like that. So I wanted to ask, what are some of the challenges you face as a filmmaker? You've talked about, in certain films, like maybe Salamatus Rhapsody, people leaving, restrictions from like your funders and things like that. But in general, what would you say some of the challenges are you face?
The challenges in general are just two. When like generally they're just two. The first one, it's like very common. Anybody you ask, you always make mention that, but that's like the most important. There's always the funding. To make films, you need money. Because there are so many things that if you want to get it as much as you want, you need money. And who is going to give you that money? People don't usually, it's very hard, especially in Nigeria. There are not really opportunities, grants to give filmmakers money. And the few people who are ready to give money, they are not ready to give their money out for a particular type of films. They are so big on making commercial films that draw a lot of attention on social media and just go to cinema and start making billions of dollars because of the kind of audience that consume films like that. That's the first one, funding. And the next one is the next step, which is like the distribution after making a film. When we make films, very common because even though the supposedly bigger filmmakers in Nigeria, they struggle with distribution. When you make your film, you ask yourself, what next? You don't know what the next thing you do. What platform can you easily access to put your film where you can get to the people you wanted to get to? How are you going to get your returns back on your film itself? How do you even like just showcase this film? It's a very big challenge that so many independent filmmakers are struggling with. Yeah, these are like the two things that are the biggest challenge for me as an independent filmmaker.
Yeah, I feel like that's the same with every kind of creative industry. It always comes down to money, getting a bigger audience, things like that. So the struggle is real. Looking towards the future, I want to know, what are you working on? I know you have like the Alpha Flix, which is like a production studio. You mentioned your first feature film and things like that. So what are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to a couple of things. And the first one, like you mentioned, my first feature film, it is titled If I Had a Choice. I write myself into some of the characters. And for this, my feature film, it is not completely myself, but there's a part of it. And that part of it is only people who know me personally that can tell that, okay, this guy is writing this character for himself. So If I Had a Choice is a story of a young boy. He's the only child of his family. He's set in the north. He's the only child of his family. His family are well to do. They are not rich, but they are okay. So his parents, they love him so much because it's like their only child. And the society, family and stuff begin to bring so many side pressure on the father, trying to make him like, okay, you have just one child and like, I don't understand. Don't you have plans of getting more children? So there like underlying issue for the fact that his wife can no longer give birth. So which means there are no chances there again. So he have to either get a new wife or divorce her and get a new wife, which all of them is not something that is very simple. So the whole process of him trying to get a new wife turned the whole family, everything upside down, turned everything upside down. But the family were like they are well to do and happy. They're living their life peacefully, but the whole pressure from family started affecting the family. And the young boy was left with the whole burden on trying to bring back his family, which he always knew. Aside that again with Alpha Flix, yeah, Alpha Flix, we've been trying so hard, like I say, on the issue. We've been trying so hard to establish it into like a creative house. not just a production company. We need a creative house where creatives can easily collaborate and make things, come up with ideas. But then we ourselves, we are also still struggling. We still don't even have like the opportunity to do stuff. So I'm hoping if I get to make this feature film itself, which I still feel is very important and very personal to me that I actually need to make and tell that story. So that's like the biggest thing I'm looking forward to as it is now. I just want to make that film. I just want to get the opportunity to make that film because I believe when I get to make that film, every other thing will follow.
To Allah ya baka sa'a, this seems like a really interesting storyline. I feel like the birth, polygamy, things like that are so prominent in Arewa households and things like that. Like I know my mom used to get a lot of comments about the number of kids she had and weight. Are you on birth control or is something wrong? Like all these comments. So I would really,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So I totally, it's definitely going to be relatable. And I know just from the way you've explored other issues in your other films that it's going to be really interesting and deep and creative. So I wanted to say thank you so much for being a guest on this episode. It was really great to be able to hear your insight and learn more about the process of filmmaking, the challenges you've been through, and the things that have motivated you to be a filmmaker. And for Masu Saurari, thank you for listening. If you want to keep up with Abu-Bakr, you can follow him on Instagram at Abu-SDQ Adamu and watch his films on Vimeo. So stay tuned for another episode coming next month. In the meantime, let us know what you think. I respond to DMs, so don't be shy. And follow us on Instagram at Hausa Aesthetic.